It's the Introvert Dating Success Podcast, the show for introverted men that's all about learning how to attract beautiful women and still get your precious alone time. And now, here's your host, dating coach and fellow introvert, Harry Wilmington.
Hey guys, welcome to the Introvert Dating Success Show. I'm your host as always, Harry Wilmington. This is the place where you go to learn how to date as your introverted self while still getting your precious alone time. Now, normally I do these shows on Tuesday, and it's been a rough couple of days. I've had some interesting news as it pertains to certain family members and certain friends that are going through some life-altering stuff, I'll say, that's going to result in me probably having to go deal with those situations on tomorrow. So I needed a distraction, honestly, and I figured talking to you guys and giving out dating advice could help because I could talk about this stuff all day, even when I'm feeling down in the dumps. So hopefully you'll get a lot of information and enjoyment out of tonight's show. If I look a little down, it's because, again, I'm going through a lot of stuff right now. But I had some comments and things that were left on my channel on various videos and stuff in comment section. And I figured, you know what? I'll just spend the show answering those questions and answering any questions dating wise that you guys have. So I have a list of about 6 different comments I'm going to either give answers to or respond to, because some people just left comments saying, I disagree with you and here's why. And I always enjoy that dialogue. Before I get into that, though, I will say this, is that obviously, like I said, I'm going through a lot of stuff right now. And one of the things that highlights to me, though, is that ultimately life is fleeting and you do not always know how much time you have here. And so one of the reasons I do this stuff for you guys is because for those of you guys that want to be in relationships and want to try to meet women but don't know how to do it, I think the worst thing you could do is get to the end of your life and say, I didn't get to do everything I wanted to do. And more importantly, I didn't get to experience love, or I didn't get to connect with people the way I wanted to, or I didn't get enough sex, or whatever it is, you know? And I think that as long as you're here, you have time to learn that. But especially as I get older, I run into so many friends of mine that are now in their 30s and 40s and still haven't figured it out. But more importantly, they don't want to. They're like, I'm cool the way I am, especially a lot of my women friends, which is sad. But there are guy friends too that are they don't know how to handle this thing, but they're too much in their egos to learn what to actually do to get to know how to do it, thinking that, oh, I'll just figure it out eventually, or I'll just pump and dump these girls and whatever. Guys, you don't know how much time you have here. You just don't. So you could be 25 right now thinking, I got all the time in the world. I had a cousin that died at age 25, you know? You could think, oh, I'm going to last my 60s. You could last to your 60s, but you're never sure, you know? I'll be right back. I need to answer this phone real quick, so hold on just a second. Hey guys, Harry Wilmington here, and I just want to tell you really quickly about some of the awesome ebooks that I have available at the website. So to start off with, we have my brand new book, Stop Losing Women, which is based off of my previous podcast, and it's over 284 pages of life-changing advice for your dating life. You're going to discover in the span of these pages the ins and outs of how to become more confident, the do's and don'ts of how to attract women, how to pace yourself during the dating process, and ultimately what it truly takes for you to be a more confident dater so that way you can get out there, attract women, and more importantly, stop losing women, okay? The other ebook that I have on my website is called No Girls For You, The Ultimate Guide to Losing the Girl of Your Dreams. This is the first book that I ever wrote, and simply put, it is a 12-chapter masterpiece that is designed to, in a very funny way, mind you, guide you through the ins and outs of why all the things you're trying to do right now to attract women can actually cause you to lose them. I mean, things like being the nice guy, overextending yourself, getting too many gifts, too many compliments, and a variety of other things that you may think as a guy I should be doing. This funny book's going to help you figure out once for all why you should not do those things and how to better yourself instead. So be sure to check that book out as well. The other book that's been very popular at my website is called Texting Like a Boss. This is where, for all you guys out there that have problems texting women or don't understand why she starts off so chummy in the terms of the texting things, and then she starts to kind of go away and you can't figure out what's going on or why, or you're not an efficient enough texter to be able to actually get dates by way of texting. Well, this book is going to give you 21 do's and don'ts that are tried, true, and tested, so that way you can get the results that you want with women when you're texting them, and ultimately not do the wrong things that are going to cause her to eventually ghost you in the texting realm. All right. So check that book out at the website. Lastly, My other popular book that I have there is called 10 Steps to Winning Back Your Ex, the step-by-step, no-nonsense guide to reconnecting with an old flame, regardless of who ended the relationship. And so for you guys that are like, hey, I think I lost a great one and she left me and I want to get her back, or you might have been the guy that's like, hey, I dumped her and then I realized I made a mistake and I want to get her back. Well, this book covers both of those scenarios in a very detailed step-by-step way that is designed to allow you to figure out what you did wrong, how you can show up better, and the sequence of events you need to go through in order to effectively win back the woman that you are no longer with. So if these things sound like things that'll be helpful to you, then definitely go to introvertdatingsuccess.com, click on the products tab, where you can find a summary of all these books as well as my various programs, and they will be more than happy in helping you figure out whatever part of the dating journey you're on, so that way you will not be confused and you will ultimately be able to have the dating life that you want. So check those out at the website today. All right, guys, I'm back. Yeah, the stuff happening over here is real. So if you see me have to get to my phone, it's because there are phone calls happening that I got to be privy to. I have other videos that are in place in case that happens again. But while we were waiting, we have a question in the chat. So like I said, this show is going to be all about you guys. So if you have any questions you want to ask me whatsoever about dating, relationships, things that you're going through, I'm happy to answer them because I need stuff to talk about as I'm dealing with all this stuff. I also have stuff up here that I'm going to be getting to, but your questions are most prevalent since you're here for live. So real talk. So let's answer this guy's question. So this guy asked, are there any ways for men to hedge against false allegations other than looking for red flags indicating mental instability? How common or prevalent is it to encounter false allegations? Well, to the second one, there's been a lot of stories as of late that have come out whereby, women have said, this guy did something to me. And then you find out months later, after his life's been ruined, that did not actually happen. But this speaks to a few things, right? So for one, in a lot of those cases, what happens is the guy will purposely hook up with the girl, pump her and dump her, maybe hook her up a few times and then be like, I'm out of here, right? And as guys, we think, oh, well, she'll be fine with it. She'll get over this and that. But, for us, we're going inside a woman. They're letting us into them. So us hooking up with them affects them more than even they possibly realize. And so you figure a woman has basically opened herself up to trust you enough to allow you to go inside of her, and then you just scoot away. That's going to rub a lot of women the wrong way, and it can make them go a bit crazy. Even women that are relatively sane, that think they think the world of guys, they think guys are absolutely great, and then you come along, hook up a couple of times, and then skedaddle. Now she's like, what the freak? I was connecting with him. I was bonding with him, and I don't like how this feels. He just left me on red. He's not answering my calls anymore, and he just tried to get out of there. You know what? This doesn't feel good. And because now I feel bad, I want him to feel the same way that he's making me feel right now. And that can cause an otherwise sane woman to want to retaliate. So this is why on our end of things, I say, not that I'm against hookup culture, but I will say you air better only trying to hook up with women that you're actively trying to actually get with, as opposed to just going on a hump and dump spree. You can do that, but there are going to be much more consequences and more women's feelings hurt when you're going that route versus you hook up with a girl that you're actually trying to get with, and then it just doesn't work out. Even if she's butthurt by it, at least it won't be like she feels like you're using her. When women feel like they're being used for their bodies, that's when you're going to come against the most women that are going to try to retaliate against you. Now, aside from those women, put those to the side over here, when you are in the dating phase, you should be taking your time. You should be going out on dates, and you should be asking all the questions. Asking questions like, hey, so you don't have to necessarily ask, for example, how many dudes have you messed with in the past? That's not really something you need to ask that's this early on. But you could say things like, so tell me about your last relationship, or what, you're still single now, what happened in those previous relationships. Get those stories. Get stories about how she dealt with her dad, if her dad's in her life, if they had a good relationship or not. Because I'll tell you right now, women that have had bad relationships with their fathers or see them in a negative light, that's going to become your issue. Because if she doesn't see the first man in her life as a positive influence or had a good interaction with him, then there's going to be some level of, I'll say, animosity that she has towards men in general. And subconsciously, she may be trying to get back at her father through you. And so if you come across those women where they're saying, oh yeah, I don't really talk to my dad, or oh, we have such a tumultuous relationship, be on the lookout. I'll say this. I have yet to date a woman that had a bad relationship with her dad that ended in good things. So that's really a really high tail way to tell is if she's telling you bad stories about either her dad or just has negative stories about men in general, or honestly, I will say this, in the age of Kevin Samuels, I will say this, that if you talk to your girl about Kevin Samuels and she's not a fan, do not date her. Because even if Kevin's delivery wasn't always the best in terms of like, he wasn't always sounding the nicest, but his advice was very much solid. If you're dating a woman that wasn't able to get past the delivery and see that he actually had a point and that he had some good points to talk about, that's really a good way to test if she's going to be good for the long run, because women that don't understand that men deliver things differently to men, and then in Kevin's case, women were going over to his space to try to ask questions from a guy that was giving relationship advice to a guy in the way that guys would give relationship advice. So women couldn't take that. So some women could. They would be like, okay, I get his delivery is kind of harsh, but ultimately the advice he's giving actually is solid. And so I'm going to listen to it. And look, it changed my life. Those women, date them. Because if they get Kevin, then that means that they understand that men think differently and they're not going to judge a guy and his information based on how he's delivering it. And I tell women friends of mine that, like, look, I've given advice to women in a nicer tone than Kevin did, and they were still like, I don't want to hear that, or that's what. So it's like, was it the information or was it the delivery? More often than not, it's actually information. And if women can't take the information about how other women are or how you see dating as a guy, if they're taking that insultingly, then what's going to happen is you're going to date a woman and then you're going to get into an argument of some kind, and she's going to be like, well, this is all your fault, or you this, and that, whatever. And then when you try to explain to her how men think and function, you're going to get met with, oh my God, you're such a misogynist and blah, blah, blah. Well, those women are also going to be prone to think that everything that happens in the relationship badly is also your fault. And that's going to lead to her feeling like anything she does in retaliation for what she feels you did wrong to her is perfectly acceptable. And so, yeah, get that out as early as you possibly can, because I'm telling you, guy, if you don't, you're going to face major troubles a lot later. So hopefully that answers your question. Random comment says, thank you. You helped me so much. I appreciate it. I have to go back and see what comments I helped with or how I answered your question, but I'm glad I was able to help you out, because that is ultimately what I'm here for. Okay. So let's go ahead and get into some of the questions that I got over the course of this past week. So I actually had a question that I got in my Instagram, and then the guy also wrote me. So he says, hello, sir. I am back in the dating world after 12 years. I'd be curious to know if you had just gotten divorced or if you were just with somebody for a long time and it didn't work out. But anyway, he says, I have been talking with this fantastic lady for the past couple weeks, and everything seemed to go really well. After our second date, I asked if she would be interested in dating. She said she wasn't quite there yet and put me in the friend zone. Since then, we had a great day hanging out, and she still texts me and is still open to still hanging out as one-on-one. I get mixed feelings from her, so I don't know if it's a real friend zone or pull-away test. Do you have any advice? I have so much advice on this. You're about to get a wallop. Let me just drink this tea real quick, because you're about to give you all the tea. Okay. So for the first part of this guy's letter, he says he talked with her the past couple of weeks, and then after the second date, he asked if she would be interested in dating. Well, for one, you were technically already dating, but I think what you're trying to say is after the second date, you asked if she would be the girlfriend. And this is a very amateur move that you should not have done. As I've talked about on this show time and time again, it takes a woman 2 to 3 months to solidify her feelings. So during that 2 to 3 months is when she's figuring out if she wants to be with you in a sense in a long-term relationship. This is because she has to analyze things like, are you trustworthy? Are you a kind of guy that says one thing and does that thing, or does something different? What is your temperament like? What stories are you going to tell her about your past that are going to either freak her out or get her more intrigued? And she doesn't have all this data on you after just 2 dates or after 2 weeks of talking. And so this is why women are typically going to take a little bit longer before they decide if they're going to want to be in a relationship. Now, the problem that guys have is there's less stuff on our end that we have to really look out for. Like, most women can't really cause too much bodily harm to us. And yeah, they can use this for our money and stuff like that. But in terms of like the strength factor, we don't have so much to look out for after, right? And so most men, after 2 weeks of good talking and a couple of dates, think, I've already figured it out. This girl's the one for me and I want her. And as I've said before, ultimately, where you're at in your feelings journey for women, it does not matter because hers is going to be a lot longer. And guys make the mistake of thinking, after 2 dates, I have these strong feelings. I already know I like her. So now I'm ready for a relationship. Now, I will caveat and say this. You're not actually ready for a relationship. You think and feel you are because you had a couple of good conversations. But the reality is you should also be taking 3 months to do your due diligence to make sure that this woman is not crazy or insane or has exes in the background or a plethora of other things that I've mentioned on the show before, right? So where your mistake is that you asked her if she'd be interested in being in a relationship. And the woman is thinking, oh my gosh, he's already there in his feelings and I'm not. And since I'm not quite there yet, it is not now fair to him for me to continue to date him because it's going to be a thing where he already has feelings and I'm not there. Therefore, we're not on the same level. Therefore, I would now be using this guy if we were continuing to go out. And since I'm getting to know him, and I'm building towards getting a connection, but since my connection's not fully there and his already is, it's now not fair for me to keep dating him. And so that's where you get the woman saying, let's be in the friend zone. Now, I am against guys trying to hang out with women that have automatically put them in the friend zone. But the difference is I say that for, let's say you've been friends with a woman for like 3 or 4 months, and now you're trying to come up to her and say, hey, let's be boyfriend and girlfriend. At that point, you're already in the friend zone. So now she's just solidifying, no, we're already friends. You're going to stay in this friend zone, right? But this friend zone is happening because she is wanting time to be able to get to know you better. But she knows now that she's not ready to be your girlfriend. But if she says, hey, I don't want to be your girlfriend right now, that there's a chance you could just skedaddle off because you're like, oh, she doesn't want to be the girlfriend. She must not want me anymore. But what's really happening is you asked her too early. And also you asked her, because I tell you guys all the time that the woman should be coming to you asking you for the relationship. And that looks like her saying, well, what are we? But that happens at the 2 to 3 month mark. And you, my friend, did not wait long enough. So now you're in friend zone jail. So how do you get out of friend zone jail when you yourself unintentionally caused her to put you there? Here's the thing, is that if she's still seeing you and she's still talking to you, that means that there's a good chance that she actually would be willing to get into a relationship with you down the line. Now, some of you are going to hear that and say, Harry, you're crazy. I don't want to give this guy false hope. So I'm going to say this. Don't bank on this woman making that decision. Like, don't assume now that you're in the friend zone, she's going to take you out at some point. What I'm saying is that because it's so early on in your guys' interaction, the possibility is there if you know how to play it right, all right? And here's a very simple thing you got to do. It's very easy. You ready for this? Here you go. Keep talking to other women. That's how you do it. Because as the great Doc Love used to say, kitty cats compete. And right now, by you asking her early on if she wanted to be the girlfriend, basically she's thinking in her head, he must have no other options or I have no other competition. So he's partially begging because I'm his only option. And it's a weird thing to say, but women need to feel and see that you potentially have other options that she's competing with. But you don't get that when you're trying to ask her for the relationship. This is also why you wait, because if she's asking you, there's a part of her that's like not too sure if you have other people that you're dating, and she hopes to God that she's going to be the one to win you by asking the question. This is why I always say, if she's chasing you, she can't be replacing you. In this situation, she knows nobody else is chasing you because you already asked her out. So very simple, right? If you guys are seeing each other consistently, first off, you need to stop texting her so darn much. Like the fact that you said you were talking to her for the past couple of weeks, as a guy that's been in this for a long time, that indicates to me that you were texting her nonstop, and then you had a date, and then the date was over, and then you were continuing to text her nonstop, and then you asked her out again, and went on a second date, and asked her about the relationship. She said, I want to be friends. And then you keep on texting her a lot. And all this texting is not giving her time away to miss you. So you need to really scale back your texting to either A, only texting her when she texts you first, initiates it, and also only texting to set up hangout times for dates, right? So that's the first thing. Yes, we're still calling these dates. We're not calling these hangouts. We're saying, hey, I'm going to this concert next week. Want to know if you want to be my date? Let me know, right? But the second thing is this, is that you need to give her the sense that other girls are potentially on your radar. And it's very simple. There's going to be a point in time where she's going to hit you up and say, hey, I was thinking we could go do this and that, or hey, I look forward to seeing you again. Do you have time on Tuesday or Thursday or whatever, okay? If and when this happens, you need to reject the first day that she puts out there by simply saying, oh man, I'd love to see you that day, but I've already made plans. Let's do it on this other day instead. Now, you don't have to mouth out there what the plans are, all right? Because women are all about passive language, and they're going to already put their sentence out there and try to pick up on what she thought you meant you were saying, right? And so when you say, oh, I'd love to make it, but I've already got other plans that night, I already have other plans that night, but I am free on this other day, right? And you don't tell her what's happening that night. She's going to now mull over what it is that could possibly be holding you up from hanging out with her that night, and that your night's already busy. And most women are going to come to the conclusion on their own that the reason you didn't say that what your plans actually were is because they're with another woman. Now, at this point, she might get mad at you. She might get upset. She might be all in her feels. But after she goes through that part, she's going to think, well, wait a minute, but why do I feel that way? Why am I so upset about the idea of this guy potentially having a night with another woman when I've already put him in the friend zone? I've already said we're just friends. Like, why would I be bugged by that? And most women, if they do that exercise, are going to come to the conclusion that it must be because they probably have growing feelings for you that they weren't aware that were there. And what's important, though, is that in that situation, you're not forcing her to have those feelings. You're just saying, hey, I understand you want to just be friends. I have other plans going on. I'll hang out with you some other time. But it's a very powerful way to make a woman think about and second guess if a friendship with you is all that she wants. And then from there, you just see what she does. Chances are she'll probably hit you up and say, hey, so, I know you have plans, but I was thinking we could go on this other thing and it'll be my treat and we can talk, blah, blah, blah. And then see if that doesn't result in you having a great night by hooking up with her. And also see if it opens up to her saying, so I know I wasn't quite ready for a relationship yet, but I was thinking, maybe we don't have to do this friends thing. We can just kind of see where things go. And by the way, guys, that's how your dating life should always go. You should always be going out with women just to see where things go. You don't have to, you want to date with intention. So you want to go in and say, okay, I like this girl and there's a chance that I could potentially see myself with her. But that first 3 months, man, I'm telling you, guys shoot themselves in the first 2 or 3 weeks by trying to rush into it. If she has high interest, she's not going anywhere and she will wait as you take your time to figure her out, much in the same way that she's taking her time to figure you out. But if you do that and just kind of go with the flow of things, you'll find that women will start chasing you. They'll start asking you for more dates. They'll start trying to hit you up random times, say, I'm just hitting you up to think because I want you to know I was thinking about you. And they'll come to you asking you, what are we? Can we be in a relationship after 2 or 3 months? So the mantra here is this: 2 or 3 months, you wait. But in the meantime, friend zone guy, just scale back the texting a bit. And just when she asks you out that first time or says, hey, I want to hang out this X day or whatever like that, just reject her a couple of times and say, hey, I can't make it. I got other plans. I got plans tonight with somebody else or whatever. And watch the tide turn. I've experienced this. So this is why I'm telling you this is a good idea, because I've had this happen several times where it resulted in me and the woman reconnecting and it was all great. All right. So hopefully, guys, this helps you out. All right. If you guys have any questions in the chat, by the way, you can definitely leave them and I will be happy to answer them. All right. So let's go ahead and get on to another question. So this guy writes me and says, I'm 24 and I've been out dating a little more lately, but I don't know what I want out of it. How do you know when to keep playing the field versus going the relationship route? How do I go about dating differently in those two routes? Sometimes girls ask some more ambiguous versions of the what are you looking for question. I don't mean the different question, the what are we want. He says, I feel the FOMO of committing to someone really cool, but still missing out on possible girls, better girls down the line, or if I might miss out on a possibly great relationship, and I don't know how I should go about dating with that in mind. I also have a couple new dates lined up this week, so I'm trying to find the right mindset to go into with these questions in mind. All right. I like this question, and I especially like it because I as a 41-year-old guy, right? I had these same questions back in my 20s, like, oh, if I meet a great girl now and we have a good relationship and we're solid, but like, how will I know for sure if that's the one versus if there's others out there? I can tell you as a guy that's older, that you can find better, but there will also be a point where you find that better. And then if you pass that up, other girls will come along that will not match that better. And it sucks that a lot of the stuff is in hindsight, but I will say this, is that if you have certain principles that you're dating for or certain characteristics, I'll say, that you're looking for in a woman, and you happen to meet up with her and she's attractive, she's pretty, she gives you the kind of hookups that you like, she knows how to talk to you, she makes you laugh, she does the things that you need in your life to function in a relationship. Like you might not be a guy, for example, that needs a woman that's going to stay home and cook and clean, but you might be a guy that needs that kind of stuff. But whatever is on your map list, right? Let's say you have a list of, we'll say like 10 things you want in a woman, right? And when you're dating, as you're dating more women, you'll find one girl that checks like 5 of the boxes. You're like, oh man, 5 boxes, that's amazing. And then you'll meet another girl that checks like 6 or 7 of those boxes. Like, ooh, these boxes. And then you'll find some boxes you have on your list, you realize you don't actually need those anymore, that they actually don't really do anything for you in the long term of a relationship. But the point is that you'll eventually meet a girl that checks off like 7, maybe like 8 of your boxes. And at that point, you have a choice. And the choice is, man, like she's pretty, she's attractive, she does all blah, 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 blah. She doesn't do this and this though. Do I really need those things? And also, what are the chances of me getting those things from another woman, but not getting the other 8 things that this girl brings to the table? And I'm telling you guys, as pretty and as well-mannered as we think most women are, I'm going to tell you now, the majority of women out there aren't going to be able to fill up your list as much as you think. Like you're going to be dating a girl, for example, and think, oh, but there's a girl over there that's prettier or cooks better or has the curvage that I like, right? And you're going to think because she has that 1 or 2 things that you like, she's going to have all these other things. And then you're going to go over, so you're going to get rid of this girl to go over there and date this other girl and realize, oh, she only has 3 of the things. Oh my God. And trust me, that happens quite often. So what I would say is this, is that if you're 24, dude, you're 24, I'd say spend a good like year or 2 years just dating. Like go out on dates with people. And you know, the nice thing about women is that this goes back to what Doc Love used to say, kitty cats compete, because guys think that you need to be dating one woman at a time or else other women are going to get mad. And what I'm telling you is that if you're on the straight and narrow with women and you tell them straight out the bat, hey, just so you know, like right now, I am dating to try to find that eventual one, but right now I'm just dating for fun and just to have a good time. And hopefully in the process of doing that, I'll find my person. It could be you or somebody else. Like that's the mindset you want to have, because ultimately, like, women control when sex happens and men control relationships. Corey Wayne says that all the time, so I'm stealing that from him. But yeah, women control when sex happens, men control when relationships happen. And so a woman that is highly interested in you is going to want to be chosen by you. And the best thing about that is if they have really high interest, they don't care when they get chosen. They just want to be chosen. So if you tell a girl, you know, hey, I really like you and I want to date you and see you, but I've got to be honest, I'm trying to date to find that one person. So I want to date you and take you out, but you might not be the only person that I'm doing that with. And until I get to a time when we agree on seriousness, that's what I'm doing. Plenty of women I found will go along with that plan. All right. Now, with that said, at any given time, let's say you're dating like 4 or 5 women, right? In the process of dating these 4 or 5 women, you're going to have one that checks off like 2 of the boxes. You have another one that checks off like 8 of the boxes, one that checks off 7 of the boxes. Then maybe the one that was doing 8 boxes goes down to just like 6 boxes. Like it'll be a toss up, right? But that's why you're dating to see how consistent these women are in the boxes that they're checking for you, right? At the point where you realize, okay, you know what? Of these 5 women, like this one over here is really like showing the most promise. Then again, you still don't go to her, ask for a relationship, but you can decide to just cut off the other 4 women and then just date her until she comes to you and says, hey, so what are we? At which point you are now in a relationship. Now, here's the other thing. Just because you say yes to being in a relationship with this one person doesn't mean you should assume that that is now the person you have to be with long term, because this person that you're with could still mess it up. Like everything could be going great the first 3 to 6 months, and then it gets down to like, say, a year and a half in, and she starts tripping over some stuff, or you guys start having more and more arguments, or you realize like maybe the way you guys want to parent in the future isn't the same, or you want to move to some state and she wants to stay in the state that she's in. Like these things will realistically come up in the span of a year or 2-year long relationship. If that happens, then you just have the mindset of like, okay, I want this to work out, but that doesn't mean that it has to work out. And I'm going to put my all in to see this. I'm going to put my all in as best as possible in hopes that this is going to work out. But in the back of your head, always have like, but if this isn't really going to be something that I see long term, then ultimately, even if it's going to hurt her and me in the moment, it's not going to be fair to her or me long term to continue this. All right. And this goes back to also having an abundant mindset. If you're a guy that has an abundant mindset and just wholeheartedly believes that any woman out there will be lucky to have you, and that if this one doesn't work out, then you can find somebody else, then you won't be so stuck on the idea that the woman you're dating in front of you has to work, because the reality is that it doesn't have to work. Like I know in this culture, we get caught up on romance and flowering, like, oh, I met my end all be all person. There's only one soulmate for every person. If you go and believe in that, you may end up stuck in a situation that you're trying to make work that's not supposed to work because you're thinking they're supposed to be the one. I got news for you, guy. She does not have to be the one. No matter how much love you have for each other, the reality is this person either is going to die eventually or it's not going to work out and you're going to dump her or she's going to dump you. In either case, you need to have the idea that you have the skill set and you are the type of person that would fit a variety of women, including hopefully the one that's in front of you. But if not, there's others out there. All right. So you go into the mind frame of dating as though you're not trying to nail this particular person down, but you're trying to really examine them and explore them and see what they're about and see if based on the things you guys talk about and experience together, if they could be a fit. If not, it's perfectly fine at any time to say, this isn't working for me and it's on to the next person. But I think so many guys don't have enough options to where they think that if I go on these dates, if this first date with this girl works and I feel it, oh my gosh, she's got to be my person. And then they feel like they're going to get stuck in that with that one situation. And you don't have to. Like, you really can, if you have an abundant mindset, have a bevy and variety of the types of women that will agree to dating you because you're a great guy in the first place. All right. So have more positivity about yourself. Be more open-minded about the idea that a variety of women will fit you. And don't be afraid to think that if you get into a relationship, you're going to miss out on other people also, because you could also be missing out on getting into a great relationship with somebody that could work out long-term. You just don't know, right? But really do as much examining as possible in those first 3 to 6 months of dating, because I'll tell you one thing for sure. At the point where you pick the right person, that really, it's that weird feeling of like, it just feels like you ultimately both connect on these variety of levels to where you don't have the desire anymore to even seek out other people. Now, this still doesn't mean that doesn't mean this could completely go bad, but ideally you're going to be feeling that feeling. And so I just say, go with your gut. If you're going out with a girl, you're having a great time, great conversations, but you're just not quite feeling that thing that says that this is ultimately going to last, that's totally fine. And sometimes you'll get it wrong, and sometimes you'll get it right, and that's absolutely great. But like, let that feeling guide you of like, I'm feeling a thing, or, we all have intuition. So even if the girl's hot as heck and you're thinking, oh, she's so hot, I'm so lucky to be able to bang her, but really look at like intuition. How's her family life? How does she talk about guys? Like, am I really looking at that stuff versus just how hot she is? And if you're not, then recognize that and get out of the whole hotness factor. So then I'll tell you, at 20, any woman you meet is going to be hot. When they get to their 40s and 50s and their looks start to fade, you got to talk to this person still. You got to be able to connect with them. And if that connection is not there, and you just got with her for her hotness, then you're going to lose out. Because I'm going to tell you now, even the hottest of hot women in their 20s, even if they're still looking relatively pretty at like 40, 45, it's not going to compare to women in their 20s. It's just not. And so you can't base your decision for a woman solely on that. All right. So hopefully in the cluster that I've said of all that thing, that helps you out. All right. All right. Oh man, we got a question in the chat. Oh man, we got a good one in the chat. All right. So here's the question. This is on the fly, people. The question is, how do you bring up wanting to have more hookups without seeming needy or frustrated about it? Been dating for 4 months. We hook up often at first, but all of a sudden the last 2 months is always an excuse not to. Then there's 0 hookups. Oh man. All right. So there's a variety of answers I could give to this. So for starters, I'll say this, is that I did a show a few months ago where I talked about the idea that early on, there's going to be a lot more hooking up happening because both parties, in an attempt to try to bond with each other and connect with each other, are using sex primarily as a way to make that happen faster, right? A lot of times for women, at the point where that actually happens, where they now feel like, okay, I'm connected with this guy, I fully trust him, I feel all the things for him. So for some women, their libido will be like, okay, now that we got him, we don't have to do it as much, right? So that's the first thing, is that ultimately, sometimes sex starts to lessen just because part of the strong part of bonding that sex does isn't necessarily needed like that anymore. And so on the woman's side, it can go away. But I have found, like, a lot of times when I get this question, I'm not typically getting the full story, because a lot of guys will just say, we were hooking up a lot, now we're not, what's going on? And if I ask them further questions about like, well, what kind of conversations were they having? Were they texting her nonstop all the time? Were they hanging out all the time? Was it any time she bringing up any kind of complaints about you that you just kind of brush to the side as like, oh, that's just a little silly thing. She doesn't actually mean that. Or, oh, that's not as big of a deal. She makes it. Like, there's a plethora of things that as guys, we unintentionally do that can result in a woman starting to have a lower libido for us in particular, right? Because that's usually a sign, more often than not, it's usually a sign that we should take as we are not completely doing every single thing that we were doing in the beginning also. You know, we go from like, we try to dress up for them and take them out on dates to like, oh, let's just do another night where we're just Netflixing and chilling, you know? And so as a guy, you got to be mindful of that. Now, the other side of that is that, you know, maybe after 4 months, she just is like not as interested anymore, or she's slowly starting to lose attraction. And again, that's one of those things you got to really analyze. Like, okay, what things am I maybe not doing as much anymore? But I've also found that some women, once they get you, they just had a low libido the whole time, and they knew that hooking up with you was going to be a way for them to get you. And once they got you, it was just kind of like, okay, I'm out, do. So you got to analyze a variety of things, right? You got to analyze how you're coming at the table. You got to analyze, really, I always tell guys, look at how much you're texting a woman. Even if she's your girlfriend, you should not be nonstop initiating text. If she does it, that's totally fine. Women can get away with that. But as the guy in the situation, we cannot get away with trying to contact them all the time, with trying to hook up with them all the time, with trying to meet up with them every single day, because women need time away from us in order to think about us, which only helps them to hold on to their attraction. Like, even when you're in a relationship, think about the fact that, like, if you guys are living together, right? Ideally, she's still going to work for 8 hours out the day. You're going to work for 8 hours out the day. There's still like a gap of time during the day when you don't see each other. And then at night, you're sleeping. That's another 8 hours. So you might only see each other for 4 to 5 hours. So that's if you're in a regular relationship where you're living with each other. And that's healthy, because again, the time away only makes women like you more. But if you're spending too much time together, then it can start to deter her feelings for you, which could also deter the drive that she has for you. So you got to look at, how are you coming at her? If you're seeing her too much, talking to her too much when she's not there, those kind of things, that could be a thing that's deterring her from hooking up, right? Now, let's say you're doing everything perfectly. You don't text her a whole lot. You see her once, maybe twice a week, and yet still, you're still not getting those hookups, right? Here's the 3 things you can do, right? Because I've been with women before that either started to lose their libido or just weren't really like the hookup type of person. And honestly, as an older guy, I don't need it that much. I could probably do like 2 or 3 times a week and be completely good. But I know in my 20s and 30s, it was like, I got upset if I wasn't doing at least 4 times a week, you know? And so unfortunately, you might not be with a partner that's willing to do that. And also, most women's libido really doesn't hit them until 35. Like, it's messed up how, as guys, our libido is the highest at like 18. And from like 18 to 34, it's just like all systems go. And then our testosterone starts to leave us. So we start to have less of a drive. Well, women start gaining more testosterone around 35. So that's when their sex drive starts picking up. And it's so funny to be like an older guy where it's like, oh man, if you're with a woman that wants to do it all the time, and as the guy, you're like, oh, this is what that felt like to them when they were like in their 20s. Because now it's like, I don't need it all the time. And they do, like, oh my God. But anyway, so with that said, here's the thing, is that for one, you can try not initiating as much, because the part of the problem could be that you're initiating all the time. So like every single date, you're initiating, and that can give a woman the subconscious idea that you're just solely in this relationship for the hookup, right? The second thing, let me see what you're saying. So, I think she's interested overall. She's let me become involved the last 2 months in her son's life. Oh, she's a single mom. Okay. Which is a big step for her. So just odd relationship developing, but hookup stop. I'm 31, she's 25. All right, so we got a little extra wrinkle to this. So she's a single mom. Single moms, man, they are busy. They are busy, and they have kids to deal with. And depending on what she's dealt with the kid that day, could very well determine how she feels at the end of the day. Because she could like you all day long, but if that kid's been running her rampant, or doing stuff involved in the school, or dealing with the baby daddy or whatever, like, that can also take a toll on her libido. Because as much as she wants to be ready for that stuff, I understand for women, sex is a lot about like the stuff in the mind, and about emotions, and about being able to be in a safe space where she can just kind of like not think about things and let go. And single moms have stuff on their mind quite frequently, to where it can be a little bit harder to get her out of the headspace of all that's going on in her life in order to make her like build up the need to want to like do you on a consistent basis, you know? So that's one of those things where now you got to add the extra wrinkle of, okay, look at what's going on in her life and look at the various things she has going on with the kid, with the ex, and her, if she has a job, because she's 25, assume she has some kind of money coming in. I don't know what her job is, but you got to look at all that stuff and see what levels of stress she has going on. Because if a woman is highly stressed, then it's far more likely she's going to lose her libido and not be as ready for that. You know, as guys, if we're stressed out, like I'm stressed out as heck right now, I can guarantee you I'm going to want to do a hookup of some kind in the near future, because I'm like, that's a way for me to get, like, we want to get out of our headspace when things are going on and be like, I just need 5-10 minutes to not think about this. Hey, let's hook up. But for women, it's not like that. For women, it's like if they're going through stresses, they're so focused on trying to get rid of that stress that they're not thinking, I want to jump into bed with my guy. They're thinking, I want to talk to my guy about the stuff that's going on so I can get out of the stress. And that's in hopes that eventually she'll get all the stress relieved so where she can finally do some stuff, right? And at 25, that sucks, because 25, she had kids young. Like, that's even harder, man, especially when she doesn't have like an active partner. And if you've only been seeing her for a little bit, for 4 months, I'm assuming you're probably not that active in the kid's life. And by the way, if you're dating a single mom, you will become a stepdad at some point. That's just a given. Like, don't ever let them tell you, oh, he doesn't need another daddy. That is always a lie, because they wouldn't be dating you and seeing you as potential if they didn't see you as potential to be a stepdad to her son. That is always going to be a thing. Don't let them tell you otherwise. But if you're not there yet, ideally, then that means that she's handling that either all on her own or with an ex that hopefully is there, but is probably not as there as much as she'd like them to be, right? So that's going to all add to stress. That's why I tell you guys all the time, dating single moms, if you're going to do it, bravo, but it is a challenge, because they bring extra things to the table that you wouldn't have to deal with if you were just dating a woman that didn't have kids, right? So with all that said, you know your situation better than me. You got to look at what her situation is with all the stuff with the kid, with the ex. You got to look at how you've been, interacting with her in that time, and see if there's things you can change up about that. If there's ways you can better relieve her of stress, then that's a good way to go about doing that. I'm typically not in the habit of dating single moms, because I tried it like 1 or 2 times, and just the moms never had time. It was always like, I tried to date this one girl. She had a 1-year-old. And every time we try to meet up, it's like, oh, I couldn't find a babysitter. Oh, I want to come, but last minute, something with the kid happened. I finally had to go over to her place for like in-person date, and that was all weird. Like, it's just a harder road, So at 30, and I'll say at 31, you could really find like other women that are single that would be all about you that don't have kids. I'm not telling you to dump this woman. I'm just saying the options are out there that are easier. If you're going to deal with this one, then yeah, you got to look at like what stresses she has, because if she's having stress at work and with the kid and with the baby daddy and all this other stuff, like if she's a solo parent, dude, that's going to be like the major factor that's going to be causing her to not want to suddenly do stuff, because, dating you is fun, right? But maybe when she started dating you, there wasn't a whole lot of stuff going on with the kid, or maybe stuff at work was a lot easier. I don't know what kind of job she has, but we're in the the fourth quarter now, where things start to pick up at most jobs, and she's probably on call for stuff. Like, yeah, it's gonna be a bit stressful, to where even if she found you the most attractive guy and wanted to do you, she's getting home at the end of the day from her job. She's tired as crap, and now she's got a kid to look after. And then you're gonna come over, and she's gonna want to be able to spend time with you and talk to you. And for women, if they're just talking to you, that could be enough of a bonding thing for her to feel like, I got my bond with him out for today. I feel great. Do. And the sex doesn't have to be a part of it. Now, for you, part of your bonding is you want to hook up. And this is where I go back into. So you got to figure out if there's a way to help relieve those stressors. Maybe it just means you take her out on like 2 or 3 dates a week, and then only one of those dates do you try to do some kind of moves, or you pre-plan in advance. Because here's the thing too, is that with single moms in particular, you don't want to do last minute dates, because she needs time to find a babysitter or leave her with the dad. And she's going to need the kind of dates where you have like a few hours to spend with her, where it's just you and her. And in the span of that time frame, as long as she has nothing else going on or other stressors, then she's going to be able to finally say, oh, my brain can relax. I'm feeling a lot looser now, and now I want to do you. All right. So you got to look out for that. He says, that's true. When we first met, she wasn't as busy. She works at a daycare. Oh, God. So she has a kid, and she has more kids to look after? Dude, like, of course oh, my God. Yeah. And also, I've dated teachers. Aside from, so now we got to add in, right? She has a kid. Baby daddy, she has a job that's stressing her out, and she's a teacher. I've dated teachers. Teachers, their jobs do not stop just because the day's over. Let's say she does daycare till like 3:30 or 4 o'clock, right? You're thinking, okay, she'll be good, right? if she's doing daycare, she has probably do like a lesson plan or think of ways for the kids to play with each other the next day. Like the job doesn't stop. So now she goes to her job, that ends. She goes home. She's trying to pre-plan for the next day at her job while also having to look after a kid, while possibly having to have interactions with the ex. All that's happening. And then you come over and want to hook up. Her plate is full, guy. So again, you might end up having less hookers with her just because she's just so freaking busy. And it sucks that that's her situation that she got herself into. This again, when I say like, ideally you wouldn't be dating a single mom, but if you're going to stick with that plan, then understand it's going to be a harder row than if you were dating somebody that didn't have kids. If you like her that much, then you got to figure out. You might have to say some random stuff like, hey, so I was thinking I want to plan out a hotel day for us. So we go to like just a hotel for a night. So if there's a way for you to plan out to get a babysitter that night, then I'll take you out and do it. That way she knows in advance that you're planning a romantic evening with her somewhere where she can just relax the heck. It might be on like a Saturday or a Sunday, and then she can just kind of chill out and be there, but it's going to be really, really hard. So just consider all that I've said, think about those kind of things and figure out where you can relieve stresses in her life. And also, again, it's the end of the year. It's going to be stressful by default of working. I imagine more parents are probably staying later, which means they're keeping their at their jobs, which means the parents are probably keeping their kids at daycare longer. Like it's a crap show, dude. So hopefully some of what I've said has helped you out. All right. I'm going to get some more tea. So we will be right back shortly after these messages. Hey guys. Yep. It's still me here. So if you have been trying to figure out the ins and outs of how to date, it can be very, very challenging, especially if you don't have the proper roadmap to be able to get there. Going from dating to getting into a relationship has its own set of problems and issues that if you're not aware of them, you can ultimately end up not being successful. And that's why I've created the Introvert Dating Success Academy. This is an academy that is designed to help you figure out the ins and outs of how to meet, greet, attract, date, land, and keep the woman of your dreams. You could have a girlfriend within the span of 3 months of meeting somebody if you knew the practical steps to take at each stage, from when you first meet the woman, how to talk to her, all the way up to how to ask her out on a date, the kind of date to take her on, how to get to that first kiss, or something more complex as to how to get in the bedroom, what to do when you're in the bedroom, and even concerning things like when you guys have your first argument, how do you deal with that? What signs can you look for that indicate how she feels about you without you having to ask her? And how can you tell when it's time for you to have the relationship conversation? Well, these are all things that are covered in the Introvert Dating Success Academy. It is a video course. It is 12 videos that are designed to walk you through that entire process, A through Z, step by step, so you can finally land the woman of your dreams. And with that, there are some pretty cool bonuses that come with that as well. Now, if you want to check that out and see what the whole program is about, you can go to introvertdatingsuccess.com and you can click on the programs tab and then click on the section that says Introvert Dating Success Academy and see everything that comes with it. But I promise you guys, this program is based on my personal success and the steps that I've used time and time again to be able to attract women, get with any kind of woman that I want to, and if I decide to, get into relationships. And I believe it can be very helpful for you as well. So go to the website, take a look at it, and I'll be happy to assist you and help you when you join the Introvert Dating Success Academy today. All right, we're back. I didn't get tea because that was only 2-minute commercials. I didn't have time to make it, so I made water instead. But water is also good, is what it is. By the way, thanks guys for watching this so far. I'm feeling a lot better. It's a nice distraction from other stuff going on. So I appreciate you guys coming here, and I'm glad I'm able to answer your questions. This guy actually left the feedback on the comment section. I think I answered one of his things earlier in the week, but he said, thanks for the feedback. I had to dip, but yes, I saw all the mistakes after I saw your videos over the last week and corrected it accordingly since I sent the message. Oh, it's the guy that I answered the message to. Awesome. Great. For the 12-year guy. So he says, so update, since we have texted less and have a date set up next week, and great advice about showing inhale options. Oh, and great advice about showing I have options. Okay. So yeah, that's what I'm glad I could help the guy out. But yeah, it's funny that it sometimes some of the things that work on women don't work so well on men. So for men, for example, it's like if we know a girl has other options, it's almost like we don't want to get into that because we don't want to challenge other dudes. Like we don't know if the dude she's going after has muscles or is, has more money or all this other stuff. We're just kind of like, oh my God, I really want her, but I'm not going to fight for it. Women will fight. I watch The Bachelor and Bachelorette all the time. Women will fight for the men that they want to get. And so if you believe in yourself as a hot commodity, and then the women you're dating see you as a hot commodity, and they just happen to find out that there's other women out there that want you, it only benefits you because women want men that other women want. And so by her knowing that other women want you, it's just proof of concept. It proves to other women that you are clearly a desirable candidate. It's the same reason why like married men typically get hit on more after they get married than they did before, because now he's proven, oh, a woman thought he was worthy enough to be able to put a ring on. Yeah, he's great. And now I want him. And there are single women that will go after married men, which again proves the concept that women will choose men that have been vetted by other women. All right. So never be threatened by the idea that, oh my God, I don't want this girl to know that I'm dating her. If she happens to find out, it only results in you winning. Real talk. Now, you're not trying to like be sneaky or trying to push in a woman's face. Look, I got other options. Like, don't do that. I'm saying if in the dating process of things, she happens to find out you still have your dating app up, or you're at a dinner and another girl that you're dating happens to see you at the dinner and comes up, hey, so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. Don't get freaked out. If anything, it's just like, oh, hey, so-and-so, this is so-and-so. Yeah, we're on a date right now. How are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, I'm so hurt. I mean, we're just dating right now. Like, I have options. You have options. Like, this is cool. We're just having a dinner. It is what it is. Like, but I think you have to build up to the idea of not being fazed by that. And so many guys have been programmed, honestly, by the media at large, that like, if you're a guy that's seeing more than one woman at a time, you're like a bad guy. And so we internalize that and think, oh my God, I got to hide from women. Like, no, like, don't be that guy. Like, be the guy that's like, yeah, of course I got other women that I'm seeing. Like, we're on dating apps. I meet people in public. I'm a good enough catch. Like, what's the big deal? And watch women after they get out of their feelings, like not only not be mad at you, but still try to go after you. It's a weird thing that most guys don't get. But like, once you've experienced guys, you realize like, oh, this is it. You win. You win when multiple women are going after you, and you win. You win in women's eyes for that. Anyway, so I'm going to read a comment from a woman, and I'm reading this comment because. I think, as I've said before on the show, I think when women either give advice or when they are trying to say what they would or would not accept in a situation, I think they mean well, but they're not a guy that has actually experienced the opposite of what they're trying to talk about, right? So this woman says, under my pull away test video, where I say like, hey, if she's pulling away, the best thing you can do is to pull away also, and then basically watch her come back. And then so she says, as a woman, I can tell you that I absolutely hate these games. Tell me how you feel. Tell me how you feel, and I'll be straight with you about my feelings. If a guy withdraws from me, I assume he's not interested and I move on. No point in crying if someone is not into me. I've got plenty to offer for someone who does. Now let's backtrack to a question I answered earlier, which was this other guy's thing where he said, hey, after our second date, I asked if she would be interested in dating, which is basically saying, I want you to be the girlfriend because I care about you and have feelings. And her response was she wasn't quite there and is now in the friend zone. This proves that women are going to say like how they would react in a situation, but it's an abstract concept. Like if you go to a woman and say, hey, if a guy pulled away from you, would you continue to be interested and want to go out with him if he came back to you later? Most women are going to tell you to your face, no, I wouldn't do that because he's playing games and I'd be mad. And this is why you can't ask women directly what they would do. You have to ask them in the past, what have you done? So you can ask a girl get the same answer, but in a different way, right? You say to her, so was there ever a guy that you were talking to that initially played hard to get? Maybe he was texting you a lot at first and then he wasn't, and then you got with him later. Like, has that ever happened? And most women will cop to, well, I mean, no, I don't like play those games, except for there was this one guy that, okay, he was really, really cute and he checked all my boxes. And so he texted me a couple times and then he went away for like a week and I was really mad about it. And then he got back in touch with me and said he was out of town visiting his mother. And I was like, oh, that's so sweet. And then we went out. So what does that mean? That the thing she said about pulling away and hating these games is a lie. The tell me how you feel and I'll be straight with you part is clearly a lie, because if you're a guy watching this, you've probably done this. Like, I know in my teenage years and early 20s, I was all about, I don't want to play games. I want to be honest. I want to tell this woman straight to her face, I like you. I have feelings, because that's what the movies told me to do. And in the movies, it always works, especially for that nerdy guy who's chasing that hot girl. And I'm gonna be that nerd. I'm that nerdy guy right now. So I'm gonna test that out. I'm gonna leave her a note. Hey, I'm feeling these things. I really care for you. I think we'd be so great together. Here's a note. They stop talking to me. They go ghost. They hook up with my best friend. So everything she's saying is theory. Tell me how you feel and I'll be straight with you. And what she's also saying is what she doesn't realize she's saying is that, yeah, she'll tell you how she feels, but she's assuming that when a guy tells her how he feels, that he's going to do it at the right time, which for women is 2 to 3 months into dating. What she's not aware of is that most guys are feeling these things after 2 or 3 dates. And so it's hard for women to conceptualize, but why would a guy come to me after 2 or 3 dates and tell me his feelings? We've only known each other for 2 or 3 dates, which is like 6 or 7 hours. He doesn't know me long enough to have made that decision. But she doesn't know how men process things. She doesn't know that the things we're looking for are a lot faster to assess than what she's looking for. And so to her, telling the advice of tell me how you feel sounds like a good idea, because to her, she's thinking you're on the same 2 to 3 month calendar that she's on. So if you go to her after 2 or 3 dates and say, hey, I have feelings for you, yeah, she's going to be straight with you and say, oh, but I'm not there yet. And therefore, we can't be in a relationship. And then she's going to think, oh, he got there too fast. What's going on? Which is why I tell you guys, even if you feel things after 2 or 3 dates, you do not verbalize that crap. You wait until she comes to you and says, what are we? Now, most guys that have been brainwashed by media will think, but then I'm lying. But then I'm not being honest. Are you really? Because here's the thing, guys. This is very important, right? Just because you feel a thing in the moment doesn't mean that that's actually what you're feeling. So when you think I'm feeling these lovey-dovey feelings, I'm feeling like I already won her. What you're actually feeling is the lustful desire to want to take her down, especially if you haven't done it yet. This is why they have the thing called post-nut clarity, where it's like after you hook up with the woman, you're like, oh, goggles off. Oh, I realize she now has problems now. I realize that she has these weird habits that I don't like. I realize her friends are probably really crappy. Like, why didn't I see this before? Because you were consumed in lust, and your lust was leading you to be able to hook up with her, all right? So when you start thinking you're feeling these things of love and grandeur, realize that it's lust, and realize that after 2 or 3 dates, if you haven't hooked up with her yet, all the things you're feeling is your body's way of motivating you to get the hookup. You have to look past that feeling and get to, but wait, do I legitimately know her story yet? Have I really spent enough time to see if we match on certain ideas? Like, if you haven't spent that time, you got to have in your head, even if I think I'm feeling the most lovey-dovey feelings, I got to hold that to myself, because if I'm straight with her about that, she's going to walk, all right? And then this part where she says, if a guy withdraws from me, I assume he's not interested and I move on. Caveat, if it's a guy that she's highly interested in, then that guy can withdraw. And I can tell you from experience what's going to happen. She's going to text. She's going to try to call. She's going to want to know what's wrong. Can we have a conversation? She's going to post on Facebook these hinty type posts to indicate like, oh, all these guys treat me so blah, 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 blah. And that's just her emoting out that she actually wants to be with you, but you're not contacting her. I can assure you, and the withdrawal, again, is subjective. And I say this to guys too, when I talk about women, when it's like, guys will say, oh my God, it's been 2 days since she texted me. She's withdrawing or pulling away. And I'm like, or she could be busy. Or it's the dating process. She could have gone up with 2 other guys in an attempt to try to see which of the 3 of you are the best ones for her, right? So you as a guy could be busy. You could be, I'm in Hollywood. You could be on set for 2 or 3 days and they don't give you access to your phone. Or you're in a camping site somewhere where you have bad reception. Or you're going to a funeral and you didn't want to have your phone on during the funeral. A woman could see that as withdrawing and have a throw fit about it. And you know what? Good. Because I also tell you guys that you need to have things set in place that allow you as the guy to test a woman's temperament. So if you do happen to withdraw, or if you happen to not text her back for a few hours and she comes back at you with these angry texts, guess what? You found out early on that she is emotionally unstable, and you can get out. You can get out now when your feelings are not fully involved, versus you don't test this stuff out. And then down the line, you figure out she has an attitude problem and it's too late because now your feelings are there and you put all this sunken cost in and it's harder to backtrack, right? But I said to say is that if you withdraw, a woman that has high interest will still be there. If you withdraw for a month, a week, a year, 2 years, if the interest is there and you touch that part of her that's like, oh my God, he makes me feel like no other guy, then when you come back, she will still be there. Now, again, she's talking about hypothetical. She says, if a guy She's not talking about any particular guy. She's trying to make a point by using an example of an anonymous guy that she has no feelings or attachment to withdrawing. It's different when she's in the actual scenario. This is why, again, I say, as well-meaning as women are, because they're emotional, their analytical reasonings for how they would act on things are going to be completely different and probably thrown out the window when she has an emotional attachment to it. So that's why you have to take everything women say in the relationship realm with a grain of salt, because women are going to come to you and try to give you advice about what women want and how they feel about things or whatever, and it's all hypothetical. They don't know because they're not men that are dating women. So just want to put my 2 cents out there about that. Anyway, got a couple more of these guys. Let's see. So this guy had a question. He said, I'm wondering if you can answer this question. Me and my longtime high school girlfriend had to take a break because I was going to college, but it was on good terms. And we both said how we felt, mistake, and that it would be hard to do anything with anyone else for a long time because of how we feel for each other. And me and her rarely ever hooked up. And it took 6 months to even do it. Like, we were both big on respecting each other and making crap like that special and not overdoing things. I'm gonna have to break this up because there's no periods or stops in this. So I'm gonna stop that there, right? So yeah, high school girlfriend, yeah, you're breaking up. Like, I'm sorry. The number of people I've seen that were high school sweethearts that end up together in a long-term relationship in my lifetime is 2. And that's the people that I've known from high school all the way up to now, 2. All right. So it's possible. It is not probable. All right. But more to the point, he says, all this feeling stuff, again, you're a high school guy. I'm not going to be too hard on you, but like, needs to say, you trying to express all these feelings for this girl. It's not necessary. It's too mushy to do anything really. And all we care about is the woman expressing that. If a woman's expressing these things, I just feel these things, blah, blah, blah. She can be mushy. It works in their end. We need to hear that. You need to be sticking to actions that show that more so than words that are saying it. And then every so often, a flower, hey, babe, I think you're special. Keep it really light, keep it fluffy, but don't go overboard. All right. Anyway, so he says, then after I said goodbye, she leaves on a family trip. And 2 days after, she bangs a random guy that she met at her hotel and then got with another guy, which is against what I believe in. And I can't believe she gave herself out like that and did things with random guys at a beautiful hotel that I've never done with her. I'd just like to know how you found out all the information. Like, the fact that you know all those details. I don't know how that got shared or at what point she was trying to talk to, how you asked her about that, whatever. But like, that's a high level detail to learn about a girl. But anyway, he says, my point is that this was like 2 months ago and she wants me back and I'm having a hard time seeing her the same way. She wants to date again and I just can't seem to look past it, but I wish I never knew it in the first place. But I feel disrespected and I cared so much about her and only her that it hurts to know something like that. Like the girl I was in love with would never, ever do that. But I just found out and wanted your help super bad. So first I want to say, I'm sorry you're going through that situation. It's because you're a younger guy. And I got to think back to like when I was a younger guy. I remember I had a crush on this girl and it was me, her, I had another close friend of mine. We were all in a friends group together and I took her to prom. We had a good time. I didn't kiss her at prom though. Like, I was still that guy that was like, I'm not sure if I should do a thing like this guy. Like, oh, I want to be respectful. I was thinking, is kissing her on her parents' porch really respectful, even though I want to? And she looks like she wants to. I don't know. So I'm not going to do anything. And then fast forward to, of course, there was a falling out. I told her how I feel about her and a note. She hugs me at school. Then we stopped talking to each other. And then she goes and hooks up with my best friend. And I was like, what the freak, But in that happening, that was my first time realizing that women can also do dirt. And the problem that most men have early on in the dating process is that we as men want to think the best of women. We generally want to believe that women out there are these sweet angelical creatures and they would never intentionally cause harm to us. If they like us, they're not going to hurt our feelings. And if they don't like us, and they know that we like them, they're still going to be gentle and aware about how we're taking things in and not do things of their own self-interest if it's going to hurt us. And this is a lesson that every guy across the board eventually comes to when stuff like this happens, whereby a girl that you viewed one way is going to suddenly act another way or do a certain thing to you that's going to open your eyes a bit. And when your eyes first open to the realities of things that women can actually do, it hurts. And because it's literally like a glass shattering. Like it goes from like you have this picture perfect as glass, like this mug right here, right? This mug is in absolute perfect condition. As far as I know, it's very sturdy. It's never going to break. But if I throw that crap hard enough into a wall, it's going to break. And I will be like, huh, but it was an unbreakable mug. I never thought it was. Every guy goes through that. And so this is a lesson for you, guy, to understand something very, very important, right? Is that this is why you do not put women on a pedestal. Because I'm going to tell you now, no woman out there is without flaws. Every woman out there has the ability to be out for her own self-interest. And in this case, like you guys have broken up. So as I talked about on this channel before, if you break up with a woman and she is no longer yours in that time frame, she goes out and does some other stuff. If she comes back to you later and you want to ask questions about, did she hook with anybody else? And she tells you, you have to decide if that's news that you can deal with. Because the reality is that as much as I'm on your side, guy, you guys are broken up. She had the right to do whatever kind of activity that she wanted to do while you guys are broken up because you guys weren't committed to each other. Now, if you decide to judge that activity and say, based on you hooking up with two guys while we were broken up, I don't want to deal with you, then that's completely in your right. But I'm stressing to you that you're putting this woman on a pedestal to where you thought that she could never do this kind of behavior. And what I'm telling you is that all women have the ability to do this kind of behavior. I don't care if she's a church girl. I don't care if she's a girl that is like, a lawyer or the senator of your state, or she's the most pious nun you ever met in your entire life, or she is all soft and docile. Like, oh my God, this will be having such a great day. Like all those girls across the board have the ability to do this kind of behavior. And I don't say that to you as a means of making you upset or sad. I say it to you to give you a dose of reality. That way, when you go out there in the dating world for your future girls and you hear these kind of things, it's not going to shock you. I think as men, we've been taught that guys are all about sex and guys are all about hookup culture and just trying to bang whatever. And guess what, guy? There are women that are out there like that too. And those women you're not thinking that women can be that way, but they very much can be. And so the more of a realistic version of women that you have, then you'll be less butthurt when this happens. And you'll just be like, oh, so we were broken up and just with two other guys. Okay, so don't want to deal with that now? I don't. Or you can say, well, she dealt with two other guys. Don't want to deal with that? Well, we were broken up and maybe those guys helped her realize she wanted to still be with me even though we're going to different schools. So, okay. Like you can, either one of those responses is totally fine, but what's not fine is you thinking that women would never do this. Women are capable of embezzling money, of cheating on you, of giving you STDs, of going behind your back to try to tell stuff to your family. Like women have negative behaviors too. And I stress this because I think so many people put negative behaviors on guys, like we're the problems in all these relationships. Sometimes women can be the problem in your relationships. All right. So I would say, I'm sorry that you're going through this, but hopefully this gives you a more realistic idea. And honestly, this tells me too, that you probably didn't have a realistic version of who she was during the relationship either, which means she probably felt a lot of pressure to have to appear a certain way in front of you. And women can tell if they're dating a guy that's going to be judgmental of them based on certain things. There are some men that if a woman comes to them and says, oh, I watch adult movies, the guy will be like, oh, how could you dare blah, blah, blah. Or if a woman says like, oh yeah, I hooked up with a couple of guys before I met you. Oh, you hooked up with a couple of guys, blah, blah, blah. And women can feel that. And in an attempt to want to still be with you and not be judged, they will alter how they act in order to get in your good graces. The fact that she came to you at all and told you, hey, so before we get back together, I hooked up with two other guys, that is somewhat admirable. I don't know how the conversation came up. I'm guessing you probably asked her. But the fact that she even told you, that's on some level admirable because she could have hit it. She could have said, hey, during the 2 months we weren't together, I hooked up with nobody. Many women will lie about that because men are very judgmental about them and they know it, all right? But you want a woman that feels like she can come to you and be open and honest. And so sometimes that means that she's going to tell you stuff that you're not going to want to hear. But if you want an open and honest relationship with the woman, you have to be able to react to that in a way that's not so hyper like, oh my God, she hooked up with two guys and we were broken up. Oh, my world's over. How could she? Oh, you're such a... Like, that's not going to make a woman want to get with you. And you might say this in the moment and then realize later on, oh, you know what? Okay, I was a bit judgy about that. I still want to get with her, but now the judgment's out and you made her feel a certain way. And now she doesn't want to get back with you at all. So you got to really look at the idea that, again, women can act as badly, if not worse, than men are. And you got to have a more realistic idea of the women you're looking at. No matter, don't let their pretty looks fool you, their nice curves fool you, their soft voices fool you. Like Eve was able to tempt Adam in the garden using the same voice and curvy body, So you got to look at it like that. Like, women are designed by nature to be able to attract men and sound a certain way and look a certain way. That does not mean they cannot be evil and manipulative. Obviously, on this channel, I like to promote that women overall, I feel, are legitimately good people that are out there to try to get a guy that's going to be there for them, that they can also be there for, and whatever. But that doesn't take away from the fact that both men and women at large can be nefarious at times. And the more you're able to start seeing that, the better. So hopefully, guys, this helps you out. All right, we got time for a couple more of these here. Also, guys, this show is about you. If you have any other questions you want to ask me, leave them in the chat, and I'll be happy to answer them as well. Outside of this show, you can write to me at harrywilmington@gmail.com, or you can leave a comment on any of my videos, and I'll be happy to answer them during the course of one of these shows that I typically do on Tuesdays, but I'm doing on Monday today. Let's see. This person said... Okay, so I did a video talking about are men trained to only take women's complaints serious when they yell? And I talked about how a lot of times men don't take women seriously in terms of their complaints until they're about to leave them, divorce them, or start yelling at the top of their lungs. And that's because as men, we're trained by other men to recognize the seriousness of a situation when yelling's involved, but women don't operate like that. So when women aren't yelling at us, we don't take things seriously until they yell, and then it's like, oh, now I see that you're serious. But you should be taking women serious when they mention stuff, because they're going to try to do it passively in an attempt to not start a fight, and you as the guy just have to know to read that. So this guy left a comment and said, before women start to get after their man for not letting up off his duff, ladies should do a self-examination exercise. Write down what task you ask your man to do directly or indirectly. Please take the trash out, direct. Your son won't get off the game and clean his room, indirect. Men should keep a log of what your lady talked about. I guarantee most men have no idea what the last conversation they had with their wives was about. They just knew to show interest enough so that she would go away and he could get back to what he was doing. So I agree with like half of this. The first part where he's talking about that ladies should be the ones to write down what task they ask their men to do directly, indirectly. Like, women don't want that job. Like, imagine like a woman having it out, write down every single thing. Okay, so I say this sometimes and I say it passively, and I want this thing to be done directly. Like, that's work. This is why, as a man, if you're a man and you're trying to be a leader in your relationship, then that means having to know how your woman communicates and how she functions and what things legitimately bother her and don't bother her. And so as a man, you need to just get hip to the idea that, as I said in that video, when women have complaints, more often than not in the beginning, they're going to come to you and just say it as a passive thing because they're not trying to heighten it to the level of a fight. All right. If you're able to take her nice, docile tone and she's like, hey, babe, so like, it would be cool if you just took out the trash. Like, she's saying it in a nice way because she doesn't want to start a fight. She doesn't want to start crying. But at the same time, she's hoping you pick on that the fact that she's even making the request is serious. You as a guy just need to know that. If you just know that, then anytime she comes to you with a complaint and it sounds very docile and soft, you'll know that in her own way, she's trying to express it, but it's really intense for her to even say it to you, all right? If you just know that going in, then you'll solve a lot of your problems as it pertains to her not feeling heard and her not thinking you care about her request. But to the second part, I will say this, is that he says, most men have no idea what the last conversation was. Yeah, that's why as men, we need to do a better job at really actually paying attention. Like, just because they're not coming to us with a high level of intensity doesn't mean that the thing that they're talking about doesn't have merit and that she doesn't mean it. So we need to actually pay more attention when they're coming to us soft, because we're thinking because they're not yelling at us, it's not a big deal. But again, if you just have in your head that she's coming to me with a request, it's probably a big deal because she's mentioning it, then it'll be a lot easier for you in your relationship because she'll feel heard. Because here's the thing, women want to feel as though their men just get them. And I know as guys who complain, we're like, women should just be direct with us and just tell us the thing and blah, 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 blah. I got news for you. If you want a feminine acting woman, most of them aren't going to do that. Some will, and that's great. But even those women are still going to occasionally say things that are a little more passive in tone than guys would, right? So if you just go in knowing that anytime she says some stuff, she means it seriously, then by you being able to respond in a way that lets her know that you understand the seriousness of her request, even though she's saying it softly, then she will naturally feel as if you get her. And you do, because now you'll get what her mode of conversation is. And by you taking it seriously, she will feel that you're talking in her language. And that's all women want to feel. Women just want to feel that their guy's able to speak with them in their language. Now, the trade-off is that as you do that more, you can occasionally throw in requests and say, hey, I know you mentioned this thing the other day. You could have just, said that a bit more directly, and I would have totally gotten it, because women on their end, they've been taught that if they're too direct in situations, that they're going to be called the B word or difficult to deal with or a nag. And so women have that thought going on in their head, which is why they're not always as direct as we'd like them to be. And plenty of guys in their past have probably told them, oh, you're being too direct. Oh, you're being too silly. Oh, you're such a nag. So she might be a little more passive, and you have to let her know as you hear her request of things, and then you're able to talk to her. Then you say later on, hey, by the way, babe, I know you came to me the other day about this thing, but you could just say, I need this thing done. I'm not the guy that's going to take that offensively. It's easier for me to get it faster if you're saying it directly, and I respect that more. And then she'll be able to go through that a few times, because it's going to take her a few times to get used to the idea that when you actually tell her you want her to be direct, that you actually mean that, and that she's not going to get punished for it. So as she experiences that more from you of not getting punished, then she'll be able to trust that more, and then you'll be with a woman that's going to be more direct. All right. So that's the trade-off of that. So hopefully, Guy, this helps you out. Thanks for leaving that comment. I got one more comment I'm going to read here. So if you haven't gotten your question in, now's a great time to ask it, and I'll be happy to answer it before I get off this live here. Let's see. Where is this comment here? Okay. So this guy left an interesting comment. He said, this is in response to, I guess I did a video where I was talking about women having different methods of communication, which I do quite a lot. He said, I'm cool with women having different methods and wanting the respect and freedom of agency, meaning to be able to come and go as they please. But if they are doing something dumb, I'm going to tell them they are doing something dumb. The difference is razor thin. I'm not being pedantic. What she is doing is objectively dumb, irrational, irrelevant, or unproductive. Criticism, whether we like it or not, is integral in a relationship. There's malignant criticism, constructive criticism, etc. But a lot of people, men and women, cannot handle even the slightest bit of criticism. For both men and women, the inability is ego-driven. Women test men, and men should do the same thing. During the dating period, criticize her to see her reaction. If she blows off the rails in an emotional response, she isn't the one. So this is what I say when I say there's levels to how this works. Because here's the thing. What he's saying isn't completely inaccurate, but he's not taking into account the times at which this should happen, right? So, for example, early on, he's saying, if they're doing something dumb, I'm going to tell them they are doing something dumb. Well, the question is, do you know, your judgment of what is dumb and her judgment is going to be different. He's saying there's things that are objective and there's pedantic and stuff like that. But the reality is that what you feel is dumb could not be dumb to her. For example, let's say a woman wants to spend $2,000 of her hard-earned money on Taylor Swift tickets, right? Now, she's got a movie of her concert coming out on Friday, which will cost all $13, right? So you can look at those two things and say, why would you spend $2,000 to go to a Taylor Swift concert when she's going to have a movie out and you're going to spend $13? That's so freaking dumb. Now, to her, Taylor Swift is the person she follows the most and connects with most in music. And, Taylor saved her life by a song that she played one day. And so you're now calling something of hers dumb that to her means the entire world. You're saying you spending all this money to get front row tickets to this concert is dumb, when to her, she could have been waiting 13 years to go to this concert, right? And so this gets into early on in the dating process, you calling her situations and things dumb is a judgment call whereby you haven't been around long enough to understand if the thing you're calling dumb is actually dumb to her. On top of, there are plenty of psychological reasons why a woman may find something that to her makes logical sense, that to you is completely dumb. The whole thing I talk about all the time with guys about women being direct and wish they could be more direct and blah, 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 blah. There are psychological and societal reasons why women aren't as direct. But for you to come and say, you're not being direct with me, that's so dumb. Again, you're making a judgment call when you have not spent enough time with her to really call out if she's doing something dumb or not. So this is why early on, you're just all about examining and doing research on her in that first 3 months to get a full feel of the things that she's into, why she's into them, why she believes the thing that she does, why she's interested in what she's into in terms of her hobbies and stuff like that. Like, you going about dating as a research project and not being so judgmental early on will give you enough data about her to then start making judgments later on and deciding if she's the right person for you. But you going on a date and she's like, oh yeah, so I did this thing this week and blah, 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 blah. Oh, that's so dumb. You don't know her enough to know why the story behind why it is the thing that she felt that she did isn't as dumb as you're saying it is. And this goes on both fronts, because women, I'm sure there are plenty of things that women look at guys and they're like, that's so dumb. Like, why are you spending your money this way? Why are you obsessed with video games so much? Why X, Y, and Z? And we wouldn't want women coming to us and saying, you're so dumb. Now, to this other point though, it's not to say that criticisms can't arise, because to his point, you do want to kind of test women early on to see how they're going to respond to criticism. But you do that in the moment based on things that are actively affecting you. For example, if I go on a second date for a woman, for example, and like say our meetup time is 7 o'clock and she gets there at 7:30, for one, I'm leaving at 7:15. I don't stay a half hour. But even with that, if she's like, hey, where'd you go? Blah, blah, blah. I'd be like, oh, I got there at 7 o'clock. You weren't there, so I left. Like, I told you I'm a guy that's on time. So if you want to do this again, let's do that. But like, that's not respectful of my time. That's a situation where something actually came up in the moment whereby I'm now feeling disrespected. I now have to address it. And me addressing it is my way of seeing, one, if she's going to like be able to cop to it and say, oh my God, my bad, I'm sorry, and apologize. And B, if she's going to be respectful going forward after this criticism. But that's a criticism that's happening in real time, not just I'm going to criticize her because I need to do it as a test. Like, no, you criticize when things legitimately come up that are going to potentially affect you and your relationship, and then you make a comment about it. If when that happens and she reacts negatively about it, then yeah, you know that you have a woman that's going to potentially blame you for anything that happens in the relationship, or is not going to be respectful of your time or what you need, at which point, yeah, you get out. But again, going back to you're not trying to like call women stuff dumb or you're irrational. You're not thinking the right way, because there's no need to do that in a relationship. Also, like you can criticize a woman's choices and decisions without having to go the insult route of calling it dumb, or guys do it all the time. You're being stupid. You're being irrational. That's not a thing. That's so dumb. And we're taking it like it's no big deal, because we can do that amongst our guy friends and guys won't be nearly as hurt by it. But women are words people and they're feelings people. And when you throw out things like you're dumb, that thought you had is irrational, why would you do that? That's so lame. Like, women take that to heart. And then women have a memory like elephants. So they hold on to that thing that you said long after it's said. I dated a woman one time where I told her like she had a flat butt. I was just like, she's like, oh, I have a really curvaceous butt. And I was like, actually, it's kind of flat. And for the remainder of the time we dated, she would bring that up like once a week. Oh, do you think my butt's flat? And I learned, oh, maybe like, even if I'm saying it in a joking way, maybe I shouldn't say stuff like that, because there's no sense in being a negative ninny if the woman's going to hold on to that and then have that comment in her head and be able to repeat it to herself nonstop that you, the person she cares about, said this negative thing to her at one point in time. Again, this does not mean you can't ever criticize a woman, but if you're going to do it, go about it in a way where it's a reasonable criticism. It's not attacking her person. It's not attacking, her ideas about things. And it's just really coming from a place of like, this is why this thing was bugging me, pestering me. Let's change this up going forward. All right. So hopefully, guys, this helps you out. So thank you guys for watching this stream. This is really helpful to me because I need to get out of my head for all the stuff that's going on in my life right now. I usually do these shows on Tuesdays. So obviously I'm doing it today because I imagine by tomorrow I'll be dealing with some family and friend issues. So be sure to check back with me next week for a brand new video, assuming that I am going to be into it. And for the rest of you guys out there, if you want your questions answered on one of these shows, go to introvertdatingsuccess.com. You can write to me at harrywilmington@gmail.com. Go to the website for ebooks, audiobooks, and programs, all designed to help you date as your introverted self while still getting your precious alone time. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm Harry Wilmington, and I will catch you guys on the next show. I'm out. Peace.
You's a bad boy, but you can't stop, won't stop. You a high-earning, high-value, high-class man. You a high-earning, high-value, high-class man. You a high-earning, high-value, high-class man. You a high-class man. You a high-class man.